Greetings from the right coast. This is Mad Shad. So, this is my second attempt to do this video. It's very, bear with me. It's a very interesting thing, but I wanted to talk about it. It's the story of Thor and Loki, Thor and Company, or you can say Thor and Friends, when he went to Jotunheimr to play with some giants. Or Jotunheimr is the rocky area. It's kind of like mountainous, rocky terrain, and the Jotunheimr are also are creatures of rocks and boulders, giants, frost giants. That term is loosely translated from Jotunheimr, which means great eaters, great consumers, rock creatures. Doesn't really say much about being a giant, but in this case, because it comes from Snorri Snorrason, I know, Snorri, which he made this, he wrote this story down. It was thousands of years after the facts of, after it was after the Viking Age when he wrote this down a couple hundred years ago, after the Viking Age, which ended about 1066. But what y'all doing? But this story is also referenced in in the Loksana, and also referenced in the Odin's argument with Thor on the fjord, on the ferry. So this is an actual old story, but it's just retold, and we find it with Snorri, and this is his basic. It seems to be a basic, a accurate rendition of this story, and so I have notes. My mind is kind of knit. So Thor and Loki, they're going on this. He's going on this great quest, as you do when you're a god, and that you hey, psst, no, leave me alone. You want to go forth and have a saga. So Loki is accompanying him. So they're on their travels, and they come to a farm, and as you do is customary in the Scandinavian lands or Norse lands, in the Norse tradition, is that it's hospitality. So the farmer brings them in, and Thor, being a gracious guest, and he says, "Well, it's okay. We don't come empty-handed. I have 2 goats that we can slaughter and eat." Oh yeah, all right. So great. He says, but the only thing is that you cannot break the bones, and you just eat. We cook it. We're going to slaughter the goats. We're going to cook the meat, and then you take the meat and you throw it on the hides, and I will use my hammer. This is where we start to see the references of the powers of the hammer. Mjolnir is Thor's hammer, which the powers, it can shrink down. For one, he can throw it, and it'll come right back to him. So you've seen that in the Marvel comics. Yeah, that's one of the powers. It can also shrink down to an amulet, so he can disguise his hammer. He can wear it around his neck and go, "Rah!" Yeah, and it can resurrect his goats. Now, his goats were no simple goats. They were the king and queen of goats, the most stubborn of goats. I don't have their names, but yeah. So they eat the goats, and they have a good old feast. But the farmer's son, whose name is Fiothi. His name is Fiothi. The son breaks open one of the leg bones of the goats and sucks out the marrow. Throws it on the hides, goat hides, and they carry on. And of course they sleep for the night. And when Thor wakes up in the morning, he goes out there and waves his hammer over the bones and hides to resurrect the goats. They pop up, Sound familiar? little Greek mythology and mythos there. Yeah, very similar story. But this story is supposed to be older than that. But who knows what the connection is? It's interesting. It's a very interesting lyrical connection between the Norse and the Greek. So anyway, so Thor is absolutely infuriated, and he threatens to kill everybody. So the farmer says, no, please. Why don't you just take my son and my daughter as your slaves for life? So Thjalfi and his daughter, where is his daughter? Roskva. Thjalfi and Roskva are now Thor's or child servants. They're actually children. I don't know, maybe they're a little bit older, maybe 16, 17, whatever, because the things that they do later on in the stories denote that they're kind of old. So nobody doesn't really know much about this in Thor's thing, is that he travels with 2 goats and a cart and 2 child servants for life, and that's wherever he goes. That's what happens. Of course, he has his amulet that he can boom turn into a hammer, throw it at you, and return. Yada yada yada. Anyway, I know, right? So the next night, they continue on their travels that morning, and that next night they find an old abandoned house with 5 curious long rooms, and so they stay the night. And in the middle of the night, there's earthquakes going on. They're like, whoa, what's going on here? Why are there so many earthquakes? What's going on here? And so they awaken in the morning to find this extremely large individual, so large that he reaches down and picks up the house and goes, "Oh, there's my glove." I don't know. Very large O.J. Simpson. It didn't fit, but this one fit. That very extremely large individual, his name was Skyrmir. And he says, "Oh, okay, hey, that's my glove." And he says, "You guys are traveling. Why don't I travel with you? And I will take all your gear and your provisions and put it in my extremely large knapsack, my sack here, and I'll carry it for you, because you guys look very weary and travel weary, and we'll continue on in our journey together." And they agree, and they put all their stuff. I'm assuming the goats and all their provisions and food and water and all that go in there. Of these 4 people, the 2 child servants, and Loki and Thor. So they go on down the road, and we're down to the travels. They stop for the night, and Skrymir says, "Look, I'm very tired. I'm just going to go to sleep. I'm not going to eat or anything. Please feel free to, get into my knapsack there and get your stuff out and cook, set up camp, have a fire, whatever you small people do nowadays. My giant ass is going to take a nap." Okay, so big Skrymir takes a nap. Boom, lays down. And so Thor says, "Okay, fine, it's time to set up camp." And he goes to this extremely large knapsack, and he can't open it. He's not strong enough to untie the knot of this extremely large knapsack. So what does Thor do? I don't know. He gets mad and goes, takes his hammer and smashes Skrymir in the head while he's asleep. Now, mind you, that's not a very Draeger thing. Just saying. Hit a man when he's down, asleep. And, Skrymir wakes up and goes, I'm sleeping under this tree. I think a leaf has fallen upon my head. And is it time to wake up yet? It seems still late out. And Thor's like, no, it's still nighttime. Please, go back to sleep. Go back to sleep there, Skrimir. Go ahead. And Skrimir's like, okay. Goes back to sleep. So, of course, Thor waits until Skrimir goes back to sleep and goes, Rah! Smashes him in the head again with the Mjolnir. And Skrimir wakes up and goes, what? Why did I sleep under this tree? An acorn must have hit me in the head. Is it time to wake up? It still looks light out, or it still looks dark out here. I'm gonna go back to sleep. And Thor's like, yeah. Sorry, yeah, it must have been an acorn. Go back to sleep. So Skrimir goes back to sleep, and sure enough, Thor smashes him again with a hammer. Massive blow. Rah! And of course, Skrimir wakes up. Oh shit! What? Why did I sleep underneath this tree? A bird must have just shat on my face. Oh well, it's almost dawn soon. Hey, let's get going. Yeah, come on, let's go. And so Thor, Loki, and his two manservants, Fjothi and Roskva, they have nothing to eat. Have been kept awake by this whole debacle going on of Thor trying to kill Skrimir in his sleep. Not a very Draeger thing to do, I would say. Big Arger, if you will. But hey, I'm not going to say that to Thor. But anyway, they carry on on their travels, and Skrimir gives them back their stuff. Like here you go. But we're moving, and so Skrimir says, "Hey, I'm going to go a different way now. Our paths are separating. I just want to advise you that right up the way here is the castle of Űtgarđa-Loki. He's an extremely large individual, just like myself, and he's probably not going to take kindly to you small people. Just saying. But hey, he might offer some hospitality. So bye bye, and big Skrimir goes upon his path, and Thor and friends, adventure troop, go the other way, and they literally walk upon this massive castle, and they're like, whoa, oh my god, wow, and it's so huge that to get in, they can't move the doors. Thing is huge. They literally squeeze through the cracks of the door and the gate to get in. Which upon entering, they find Űtgarđa. I need something to drink. Űtgarđa-Loki. Űtgarđa-Loki, very extremely large individual, the Jotun, and his court. And he's up on his throne. He goes, "Oh, hey! Welcome! Come, please, come on in. Stay the night if you like. I see you're weary travelers. I'm giving you hospitality, but I require all my guests to compete in some type of sport." And so that's what you're going to do. You're going to compete in some sports. So he looks at him and goes, "What kind of sports are you guys good at? How about you?" And Loki goes, "Hey, I am an all-time great eater. I can out-eat anyone. I'm a competitive eater. Yes." And Űtgarð goes, "Oh, is that so? Okay. All right, I'm going to set up this huge trough. Massive, huge trough. We're going to fill it with meat. And you're going to start at one end, and my the other end is going to be my brother Logi, 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 and you're gonna have an eating contest and see who can eat the most." So Loki, being the great god that he is, starts eating. He eats all the meat, gets to the middle of the trough. And you look where he meets Logi. who has eaten all the meat, all the bones, and the trough itself. Oh shit. Loki loses to Loki. Well, that sucks. And of course, Űtgarđa-Loki is like, that's funny. You couldn't out eat my little man here. So I'll tell you what. So he says, okay, fine. How about you there, little guy? And anybody else got something? And Fjölnir, the manservant of Thor, says, I can run really fast. I will beat anybody that you put up against me. I'm a mere human mortal, but I'm fast. Grew up on a farm. Yeah, I'm fast. So Űtgarđa-Loki says, okay, fine. Set up a course. Yeah, it's like a circular course or something. And you're gonna race my my little son, Hugi, 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 and you guys have at it, huh? What do you say? And so Fjölnir is running. He's like, yeah, and he's doing good. And he gets around one lap, but to his May, Hugi has already lapped him twice. What? No. And so he goes around to try to, as you do in a freaking course. And every time Fjölnir makes a lap, Hugi laps him again. It's like shoop, 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 literally running circles around this mere little mortal of a man. So Fjölnir loses. Mind you, you notice that Roskva is not competing because she's a woman or a girl. Yeah, there you go. I mean, I don't know. That's the way the cookies crumble. They're kind of there might have been there's speculation that maybe Roskva had a sport that she competed in, but that Snorri left that out because he was a male chauvinist pig. I don't know. Nobody really knows, but they kind of think that he was because he was a Christian. He was a Christian chieftain, converted chieftain into Christianity. So, but he still knew all the stories, and he wanted to write them all down in the Posera. And so there we go. So Fjölnir loses to Hugi, and Űtgarđa-Loki is like, man, you guys can't do anything. So, how about you, Thor? What can you do? You're a great god and all. What's your skill? And Thor is like, well, just so you know, I am a drinkimaður. A what? Drinkimaður. A great drinker. See how that word drinky? Yeah, drinky. There's a lot of words that we get from Old Norse. Drink. That's very cognate. But anyway, so Thor says that he's a drinkimaður. So Űtgarđa-Loki says, okay, I'll tell you what. Here's a simple drinking horn that anyone in my hall is accustomed to drinking. The best men can do it in one gulp. Some lesser men can do it in two, but no man is such a measly drinkimaður that he can't do it in three. So Thor's like, okay, he takes this horn of mead. He's like, okay, it's pretty big, but watch this. He drinks it down. He just sucks it right on down. He's turned it up and glug, 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 glug. Well, finally he has to come up from air and go, oh, he puts it down and looks in there. He doesn't drain anything. It's still, what the fuck? What? So he goes at it again. Takes big old deep draws because, he is a drinkimaður. And he drinks it all. He's drinking it and drinking. And of course, he has to come up for air and go, oh, burp. Looks down. What? Hasn't even moved it at all. the level of mead in the drinking horn is still the same. And the description is it's a fairly large drinking horn, but you know, not so bad. Not for a great drinking mother like Thor. So Thor's like, well, shit, yeah, it's third time. Let's go for it again. And he turns this horn up and he's drinking it and drinking it and drinking it. And he's had it to his lips for a long time and he's sucking down the mead and it's got to stop. Take a breath. Yeah. He looks at it and to his dismay, the description is he's only drank a thumb's width of mead from this horn. Yeah. So. Back again. So, where was he? I just had to turn down the heat and open the windows. It's freaking getting hot in here. Get a drink. Yes, I'm very fast. So Thor cannot drain the great drinking horn. Fails. Űtgarđa-Loki is like, oh, wow, aren't you just a pity little man? You call yourself a god. You call yourself a drinking mother. You're so funny. Anyway, so Thor is very disgusted and embarrassed and says, well, okay, all right there, Thor. Űtgarđa-Loki says, okay, Thor, maybe there's something else that you're good at. Possibly. And Thor is like, well, I'm very strong. I can do feats of strength. You know, and Űtgarđa-Loki looks around and goes, well, you know, there's really not a lot here that I think that you, a small little person, would be able to pick up. How about my cat? Yeah. Calls in his cat. Cat is about as big as Thor is. So it's a big cat, but, you know, in the proportion of this world, you know, of giants, it's not that big. So Thor's like, okay, great. Yeah, I can pick up a cat. Kidding me? Grabs the cat and he can't pick it up. So finally gets underneath the belly of it. Big mighty push. And he gets one paw off the ground. Off the cat. Oh man. So Űtgarđa-Loki's like you can't even pick up my cat. But yeah. What, I'm sorry. Who are you? Thor? Son of Odin? Well, you're a puny little god, aren't you? Thor gets mad. He's like, fine, I'm pissed. I will out-wrestle anyone here. And Űtgarđa-Loki's like, you know, you couldn't even pick up my cat, so I don't think it would be a fair wrestle match with anyone here in my court. I know what. You can wrestle my grandma. Yeah. There we go. That'll be fair. So he calls out his grandmother, who, I have her name, Ellie. Well, okay, wait. Yes. So his grandmother's name is Ellie. And so he goes after Ellie. They square up and they're doing their wrestling thing. And Grandma knows some freaking Viking jujitsu and just and submits, finally makes Thor tap out. And I mean, she's doing like they're actually the Norse had a version of jujitsu, if you will. It's called glima. And it's actual sport. It's evolved, but the idea was to wrestle someone to the ground and get them off their feet, get them on the ground, and flat. Because the idea was that if you're in battle and you fail, you died. Often was the case. If you fail in battle, somebody's going to stab you. Yeah. You're going to be stabbed, punched, killed. So you hit the ground, you're dead. That was the truth of battle. I love you, by the way. This is given to me by my roommate, Linda. So anyway, Ellie beats Thor, makes him tap out. Okay, I give, and that's it right there. It's like, oh shit. Well, everybody lost. So sorry for your loss. You guys are puny little people. But Űtgarđa says, all right, well, that was fun. You guys can spend the night anyway. But you're going to have to leave in the morning. Such was the case. Hospitality, you give them hospitality. But it's also, don't overstay your welcome. You know what I mean? So Thor and friends, Thor, Fiothi, and Roskva, who must have had a really, really good time there, because she didn't do anything but eat, sleep, and drink, whatever. I don't know. Maybe she ran off to the, to the broom closet somewhere with, who knows? Anyway, Loki and Thor, they wake up and they go to leave the great castle of Űtgarđa-Loki, and Űtgarđa-Loki walks them out and says, Thor, I have a confession to make. Yeah, I use magic and treachery to deceive you. Yeah. So Thor and Loki and all of them are like, what? Really? He's like, yeah, yep, sure did. Actually, that guy that you met in the beginning, Skrymir? That was me. Yeah, I came out to meet you, and I used magic to make myself look like a monstrous man, monstrous Jotun. And when you hit me with your hammer on my head, those were hills. I took a hill and moved it into the path of your hammer, and every time you struck me with that hammer, you were actually striking 3 hills, which are those 3 valleys over there now, which you nearly destroyed my kingdom with those 3 massive blows. So there's no way I could have survived such a massive blow. 3 massive blows. One, much less one, than 3 massive blows from your hammer, Mjolnir. So yeah, I used that trickery and deceit to survive. So going through the challenges in the competition, the one when Loki and Loki paired off, and they were having a eating contest, who can consume the most. Loki was competing against flame. Logi means flame, and who can out-eat flame? They consume everything. Flame consumes it all. So that's why you lost there. When Fiothi had his race against Hugi, Hugi is actually thought, and nothing is faster than thought. Yes, speed of thought. Yeah, not even the speed of light. So the horn that you were drinking from was actually the ocean. That's why you couldn't drain it all. Who can drink all the ocean, all the water in the ocean? But you did, if you notice the ocean. Now, you made such a huge dent in the ocean that now we get tides. It goes in and goes out, and it's high tide, low tide. Thanks Thor and Űtgarđa-Loki for giving us tides, which is pretty cool. You can go out, tides come and go. Now, when you were wrestling with my cat, and you I must say that you lifted one paw off the ground. That's a pretty good feat, because the cat was actually Űtgarđa-Sorme, the great serpent that encircles the enclosure and the oceans of the world. Yeah. See, they had this idea that it wasn't flat Earth. It was that Midgard was in a enclosure, and a lot of the realms, like Asgard. Asgard was in an enclosure, the god enclosure, and Midgard was in a, our realm was in its own enclosure, which, there was land in the middle, ocean, and then a huge serpent with his name is Űtgarđa-Somer, the great serpent, encircled the whole enclosure. The enclosure is made by the teeth of Ymir, the great massive god that, anyway, that Odin and his brothers killed. Yeah, so that's what. Okay, all right. Back to the story. So Űtgarđa-Loki goes on to say, yeah, Thor, when you wrestled my grandma, whose name is Ellie. Ellie means old age. And not even the gods can beat old age. Matter of fact, the gods have to the gods have to eat apples of ether. Sound familiar? Once again, this whole little connection between the Norse and the Greek gods, pantheos. They have to eat these golden apples to stay immortal. And there's another story about that where they lose the apples. But they have to, eat these apples to remain mortal. Thor is like, "Wah!" Takes his hammer and goes to swing at Űtgarđa-Loki, and misses, because Űtgarđa-Loki disappears. Uses his magic, and poof, ninja vanish. And, Thor meets nothing. So, it's very interesting. A very interesting story. And this is an old tale that goes back way past Snorri Sturluson and his, because he's telling it, and there's it's his rendition of that, which doesn't seem to have changed much, because it's also referenced in Loksana. Loksana is the dissing, is Loki's dissing of the gods. He brings up all these little things that Thor failed at in this story, and also Odin uses these stories to belittle Thor at the it's called what's it called? Yeah, it's the argument that Odin and Thor had at the fjord, when Odin was posing as a ferry master, and was like, "Yeah, you can't get on the ferry. You couldn't even drink the mead." Yeah. But another interesting thing is that Űtgarđa-Loki, Űtgarđa means outside the enclosure. So we know that Thor and friends traveled from Asgard, and so that meant that they had to go outside the enclosure of, so they could have been in Midgard, or they could have been just outside in another realm. But it says that they went to Jotunheimr, which is the land of the rocky kind of place with rocky beings, the Jotun being the great consumers and creatures of the rock. It also talks about trolls. Matter of fact, funny, interesting little thing. There's all the troll names, the dwarf names in the Rings trilogy, Gandalf the Grey and all them. They were actually dwarf names in Norse mythology. So I think that's be interesting to note. But Űtgarđa-Loki, outside enclosure Loki? Huh? What? Interesting. Now Loki, he's a very interesting person as well, because he He's half Jotun and half Aesir. Aesir. So his mother was Aesir. His father was possibly a Jotun, but he was also a blood brother of Odin. They actually had an oath. So, yeah. So there is speculation that Mr. Loki was actually a illegitimate child of Odin. It's very, very possible. It's very possible. I'm trying to find reference to it, but his last name comes from his mom's name, which is of the Aesir. But there's also it may or may not Odin may or may not been turned himself into a Jotun to brown chicken, brown cow with mama, and they produce Loki because they're both very similar. Okay, very, very similar. And there's an oath. Let's talk about the oath. The oath between Odin and Loki is that neither one will be denied a drink if the other one gets a drink. So if they're at a party or something and someone offers Odin a drink, they must offer also Loki a drink. Drink. I love you. Anyway, so, and they're both very similar. They can both change their appearance. They can both not only just change their appearance. They can turn into things. They can turn into cows and sheeps and eagles and serpents and all manner of things unto pertaining, male or female, and give birth and become pregnant and give birth to fantastical beings, which Loki has and Odin has as well. Actually, Odin's horse Sleipnir, which is a 8-legged horse that with fiery eyes and all that, is actually a son of Loki. When Loki turned himself into a mare, a female horse, and had sex with another horse and gave birth to Sleipnir. Also, Loki gave birth to the great Fenrir, the great wolf that will ultimately kill Odin at Ragnarok, and he also had some other, very, unsavory beasts that have been the bane of mankind and God existence since their conception. So Odin also has had some children, that were not entirely of this world. So I digress on that. So they're both very similar, and they're also both very arger, cunning. They would rather use cunning and deceit and treachery to get to their means to an end, other than just like Thor and be Draeger and fight. So they use their wits, and it's funny because they both are kind of arger. Matter of fact, Odin was tried and convicted in Aesir of being arger and kicked out of Aesir and for not being manly enough. And there's some things where he did some gay shit. Okay, and they were like, that's kind of pushing it, bro. Even though you're all father and all that, we're kicking you out. I don't know how that works. But Loki, they brought him back. I think that's after he did all the whole sacrificing himself to himself and all that. But yeah, both are been known to just turn themselves into men, women, and do all kinds of crazy sexual things, and with not only different sexes of the opposite sex or the same sex, but also with different species of the opposite and same sex. So we're talking on a whole another fucking level. So, oddly enough, when Loki did it, he gets imprisoned. And he gets imprisoned, and venom from a snake is dripped on his head. He's chained to a log, and venom is dripped on his head. And his wife tries to catch all the venom from the snake from hitting Loki's head, and then when she goes to pour it out, the venom hits Loki's head, and he shakes, and that's supposedly where earthquakes come from. So yeah, there you go. Interesting story of Űtgarđa-Loki. Are they related? It doesn't really say. Maybe it was implied, because a lot of the words do imply and tell their own kind of little story, you know. You know, and the Jotun are known for their treachery. So is Loki, and you know, so is Odin, and all his people as well. Bori and Besli and Bori, they all have this kind of and Bur. His brothers Vili and Ve, we don't hear much about them, but you know, they are the great grandsons of Ymir. Ymir is the same word in Russia that you hear Ymir, 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 however you say it. It's an Ymir, I think. But that was the original being that was brought to life from the great intergalactic cow god that licked a block of ice, salted ice, and out came this being. Anyway, whatever. We won't go into. I think I've touched on that before. So yeah, it's an interesting story, and it goes back even farther back than Snorrason. It's referenced in the Poetic Eddas and the other Loksana and Odin's in Havamal. So just thought I'd share that with you. That, like I said before, this is like my third attempt trying to get this freaking video out. Things keep happening. I think the gods don't want me to tell this embarrassing story, do they? But yeah, I'm gonna leave it at that. This is Mad Shad signing out.